So, day 16 of our 21 days property investing, we're going to be talking about cross security. Now, if you're going to be building up a property portfolio, it's really important to understand how your properties are used as security for the finance you need to build that portfolio. So, when you have multiple properties that are joined together for finance purposes, it's called cross security. So, let's say you've got your family home, you've got a bit of equity there, and you're going to use that equity to help you buy an investment property. Now, if you're going to be using the same bank, generally speaking, those properties are going to be tied together and across security, and that means that if anything happens with one of your properties or you stop paying your mortgages, the for whatever reason, maybe the rent doesn't get paid or you lose your income, then the bank can actually claim on both properties to recover the money that they've lent you. So cross security, especially in sophisticated property investment circles, and you'll hear a lot of media hype about why cross security is a bad thing. And generally speaking, if you can avoid it, all things held constant, it does make sense to try to avoid cross securities by using multiple different banks. And what that means is if you sell properties in the future, then only the debt tied to that property at that bank is required to be paid back. So it gives you the ability to keep the cash from those sales. If you sell a property that is cross secured, whether you get to keep your money, that is in question. Now, that's why cross security gets such a bad name, is because property investors that potentially not working with mortgage advisors, they're just working with the bank, and usually just with one bank. They've sold a property without talking to the bank first, thinking that they're going to get this big windfall of cash that they can go and deploy to other investments or other lifestyle decisions. And what ends up happening is the bank keeps that money, and I'll take you through that scenario here. What you've got to remember as you are building up a property portfolio is that cross security, whilst it has a bad name and it can be a bad thing later in your investment life cycle, that when you're building up your portfolio, cross security actually can be a valuable tool. And the reason is when you are cross securing your properties at the same bank, you're often able to get a better banker, which has more ability to do what you need them to do outside the lines if required, more competent banker. And that's even through a mortgage advisor. They can find the right private bankers or business bankers to partner up with and get those deals done, especially when income is tested in different ways. And you can often save some costs around valuations. You can sometimes get lower interest rates. And it just, generally speaking, as you're building up a portfolio from say one property to 3 or 4 properties, cross security, especially for a younger, relatively younger investor, actually is something that's worth considering doing. When you're in your later stages of investing, especially if income from non-property related things has dropped off, then cross security can be a really bad thing. So let me just show you about a scenario with cross security. So let's just say you've got 3 investment properties, all with $800,000 each, and you've got a $900,000 mortgage. The portfolio is worth $2.4 million. Now, what you're after is $500K of cash so that you can have a year or two of really comfortable living. You just want the $500K cash. So in your mind, what you're thinking is, okay, $900K mortgage across 3 properties, then I've got $300K of debt across these 3 properties on each of them. So you sell one of these properties to free up the 500, but what happens is the bank says, actually, these properties are cross secured, your income situation has changed, and we've tested your ability to maintain this debt, and we're actually going to ask you to pay off not the 300, but you've sold this property, we're going to ask you to pay off 800K. You're not going to get the 500K, and now instead of having these 3 properties and the 900K debt, what you've got is 2 properties and only 100K debt. So you're not getting the benefit of leverage because your mortgage has gone from 900 to 100, and you're not getting the benefit of capital gains on 3 properties. So it's a really terrible outcome through lack of planning, and because you didn't understand cross security before, during, and after your plans, and you probably didn't get good advice and you did things in the wrong order. Now in this scenario, if properties are cross-secured, probably what you want to do right from the beginning of your intended plan is to separate this property out and leave all of the debt across the properties that stay with the bank. Have this property freehold, then you can sell that property for 800k cash. You've got 800k cash goes into your bank account, so you can deploy that 500 however you see fit. And then if you want to, you can take the 300k and use it as an offset, or you can use it for whatever else you want. And so all of this stuff is relatively simple for competent mortgage advisors, and you really want to make sure that somebody understands your plans before, during, and after, and you don't quickly execute property sales or property transactions without understanding the repercussions and without thinking a little bit further ahead. So if you've got any questions about cross security, about the good or the bad or the ugly, let us know in the comments, and just be careful about being too black and white about cross security, because it gets a really bad name, but sometimes it can be a good thing.